Hello, 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 everyone. This is the Melanated Air Hour. I am your girl, Lene Javette, at I am Lene Javette. And today we have a dope conversation for you today regarding the theft of Black legacies. But before we get into that, let me introduce the rest of the co hosts during the Melanated Air Hour. You have Miss Teddy Ewing at The Real Teddy Talks. You have Keisha at We Inspire Brand. You have Madam President at One Madam President. And you have Miss Faye Bishop at Miss Faye Bishop. Okay. Um, Hopefully, maybe you've seen the news, you've seen articles relative to Henrietta Lacks and the securing of the beach in Manhattan Beach in California. That's going to be our topic of discussion today. I am actually traveling, so you see me in my hoodie. I'm sitting in the hallway at the airport. So I'm going to throw this over to Teddy so that you guys don't have to be disturbed with my background at the airport. And she is going to guide our conversation today around the theft of Black legacies and how to protect them. Go ahead, Teddy, take it away.
So hello everyone. Make sure in the comments you are repping where you're coming from. If it's your first time, let us know. If you've been here several times, let us know that as well. Before I get into today's topic, I wanted to let you guys know some exciting news. We are live and in living color on YouTube on our own channel. It's called Melanated Air. You have to just type it in the search. It should pop up. Every video we do here, while it's live on several different platforms, will also be posted to the Melanated Air YouTube channel for your viewership whenever you go back. So please do go to the Melanated Air on YouTube and subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be there with us every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you. Hey, Chicago. Hey, Seattle. We see you. Lene is leaving your hometown, but she's going back to the warm and breezy airs of Arizona. But
yes, I am literally in Chicago. What up, Chicago?
So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the theft of Black legacies, but more importantly, the protecting of Black legacies. For those of you who are unaware, there is a woman named Henrietta Lacks back in the 50s, had a very aggressive case of cervical cancer. And during her exams by her doctor, they discovered that her cells were a rapidly growing type of cancer they'd never seen before. Fast forward, a few decades, they have been using this woman's cells she died just like, I think within the same year, within a couple of years of the discovery, I think it was the same year actually, of the discovery of the cancer cells. But since then, her doctor passed it along to research groups and medical research facilities, and they have been using this woman's fast-growing cancer cells in medical research for decades, since the mid-50s. And they have never compensated her or her family, her legacy, for any of that. And their claim being they are not using it for profit, right? They're not making money off of it. But we know that that's a lie, because any discoveries that are the result of that research, they're using to sell for cancer research, cancer medications, using things in the hospital, etc. So her family is currently in a multitude of attempts to sue these medical research facilities. I don't remember which research facility Thermo Fisher Scientific is who they're suing right now. So they are trying to make that happen with attorney Ben Crump and see if this lawsuit will go forward. The second issue we're talking about is a Black family in California in 1912, I'm trying to find their names again, Bruce's Beach. So it was Willa and Charles Bruce purchased land in California, beachfront property, and it was seized by the state in eminent domain in 1920. And then they said they were going to use it for a national park, etc. They never did that. Then later on in 1940, it got turned over to the state. And now it's been developed, it's been sold for private commercial real estate, etc. So their legacy was finally able to get ownership of that land back almost 100 years later, over 100 years later. So our topic today is, how do you protect your Black legacy? It's nothing new to the Black community having our intellectual property, our actual work, our patents stolen, co-opted, never given credit for, and definitely never compensated for. So going forward, as you live your lives, build your own personal legacy, have your own ideas, your own patents, your own medical crises. How do we ensure that we protect the Black legacy, protect your legacy for you and the generations that follow you? I'm gonna start with who's excited, Madam President. I think you're excited for
I'm
this.
so excited! Oh my god! I just get so ramped up whenever Black people are receiving monies from white society and white supremacy. Like Black people, yes, I am always cheering Black people on. This is magical. I mean, okay. So Henrietta Lacks, in general, her cells have a nickname, Gila. You cannot give my cells a nickname and give me nothing. So what America did to this woman in the 50s, they literally, without her permission and consent, took her cells without her knowing. And I watched this documentary one time, and her brother was talking about how she was in so much pain, which makes me concerned. They were so excited about the research of this woman that they didn't even give this woman, I don't believe, even a chance, a fighting chance. They didn't care about the woman. They were interested in her cells. And we know the kind of issue that we have with the healthcare system today as an African-American woman. Now, here's the thing. After that, they literally, Gila cells, like you said, research, makeup. Her cells have floated across America. A Jewish woman wrote a book about the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks. HBO created a movie about the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks. And you mean to tell me her family's sitting in poverty?
Zero.
They struggling? How are we studying? This is the problem. This happens to all of our great Black people in this legacy. Like, they don't get it. They literally have things stolen from them. Because when you think about this, there isn't a time that typically if a Toyota Corolla gets into a head-on collision with an 18-wheeler, that Toyota Corolla cannot stand. And that's how it is when you're fighting a systemic infrastructure of white supremacy. You literally typically can't win because the entity is so big. Now, when Henrietta Lacks left, she was only a 31-year-old woman. She was literally young, had so much life. So I'm excited that our people are getting a chance. The legacy, I believe, and I'm going to tell you something too, Queens, I believe that this is stimulated from this constant conversation of racial injustice and social media. Social media is giving us access to people and attorneys and interests that we never had before. In the 50s, you don't know how to go and fight a system. In the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, the same thing. So I believe wholeheartedly that I think a t-shirt floated around and said, "We are our ancestors' wildest dreams." Yes, we are. We are coming to get everything that America thought she got away with.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
It's time for America to pay up. I'm telling you. They got to pay up. And what's interesting to me is that they said, "Oh, well, we're not making money off of the cells." Okay, so, right? Like, if you buy a book and you don't read it, you still had to pay for that book, right? Because it was someone else's property. It was someone else's intellectual property. You still had to pay for it. So it's time to pay up. Pay this family what you owe them.
So I was doing some research. When we decided to make this the topic. So we're literally going to reiterate some of the stuff that we've already talked about. So to what Madam President said, in the 1950s, this was long before they developed the advent of consent procedures used in medicine and scientific research today. So initially, the family was like, okay, well, there's nothing we can do about that piece of it. But what happened was, let's see, John Hopkins says what Keisha said. They never profited from the cell line, right? So that when they harvested the cell, they didn't profit from it. What happened was other companies started creating cures and distributing them for billions with a B, billions of dollars. They found out that, so her cell became a cornerstone of medicine, enabling countless scientific and medical innovations, including the development of polio vaccine, genetic mapping, and even the COVID-19 vaccines. We can't say it. So the HeLa cells were discovered to have unique properties. Shout out to Black women with unique properties. While most cell samples died shortly after being removed from the body, her cells survived and thrived in laboratories. This exceptional quality made it possible to cultivate her cells indefinitely. They became known as the first immortalized human cell line, which is why they call her the immortalized woman, making it possible for scientists anywhere to reproduce studies using identical cells at any time. So the issue becomes, this is a quote from Ben Crump. It is outrageous that this company, we're talking about the company that's being sued, would think that they have intellectual rights, property to their grandmother's cells. Why is it that they have intellectual rights to her cells and can benefit billions of dollars when her family, her flesh and blood, her Black children get nothing? This company, according to what's on their website, has benefited $35 billion in revenue using her cells that were stolen from her without her rights. And now companies are literally creating their own product and then putting a stamp on it saying that they have intellectual property on something that was stolen and was never theirs to begin with. That is a huge issue. Before we can talk about protecting, we have to talk about the theft of legacies, the theft that comes from, that has been in Madam President, I'm gonna go back to Madam President's time, the theft of slavery, the theft of innovation, the theft of ideas, the theft of patents. Like, when does it stop? Like this is from 1950, but this is a fight that we're having today in 2021. Her family is missing out billions of dollars, and this is just one company. So the article says that this company should not feel alone because they're literally coming for every company that has used this stolen cell.
Well,
So
how I feel, and I'm glad that you brought up, Lene, theft, the theft part of it, the theft part of intellectual property, and how this is happening today, some 60, 70 years later, since, the Henrietta Lacks situation. Her family didn't even become aware of, her cell line of existence until 1975. So with knowledge of the cell line's genetic, provenance becoming public over the years, and the fact that it's been used for medical research and commercial purposes, and the fact that it continues to raise concerns about privacy and patent rights, that's something that we all really need to take more responsibility for doing in this present day, in terms of our own research and our own ignorance to knowing what our rights are. You know what I mean? Because what I've come to learn in this life as an adult woman, working as an entrepreneur, and just working in certain industries, I've learned that sabotage from more powerful people and groups are a part of life, no matter who you are, where you live in the world, and what you do, right? Economies are warfare. There's also spiritual warfare. There's warfare by subject, objective, and by proxy, right? Whoever seizes all power wins. That's just the way things are. That's the way of the world, right? But what I have come to realize is that you have one job, and that is to take position on the battlefield so that the enemy's move guarantees his or her defeat. That said, when it comes to legacy preservation, it's extremely important because the pieces of you, no matter how big or small, and the works that you do are priceless. It belongs to you. It belongs to your loved ones, and they're too easily lost over time. So when it comes to estate planning, when it comes to patent, when it comes to your rights, it's very important to educate yourself on all of the above. This is why one of the golden rules I live by, and I tend to encourage people, study law, study business, study finance, and study tax, because it's all prevalent to you regardless of what industry you work in, regardless of what it is you do. People hire attorneys and they tend to not, the attorneys, I would say, tend to not really consider a person's legacy beyond probate and written wills that are drawn up. And in this case, with Henrietta Lacks, It's not a paper she wrote. It's not a book she wrote. It's not a, it's not land that she owned, even though that's common as well. We'll get into that later. But her legacy lies in her immortal cells. And what she did was unlike anything that was ever done in science before. So, in anything done in the history of medicine, I would say. So, when it comes to legacy, we just need to realize that it's equally important to invest in knowledge, invest in learning law, invest in educating ourselves about law and business, regardless of what industry you do, because it can affect you even in death.
That is great, Faye. For those of you that are just joining this conversation, we're talking about how to protect our Black legacies from theft. We're using the cases of Henrietta Lacks, who had a very aggressive cancer in the 50s, and her cells were co-opted and used by Big Pharma to make billions, if not trillions of dollars in the last 60 years. And her family has received nothing. And we're also using the case of Bruce's Beach in California, where a Black family purchased some beachfront property. It was seized by the state. So they purchased it in 1912. It was seized by the state in 1920. And they never got, it was just eminent domain. They never received compensation. Now it's been developed, commercial property, commercial real estate. And finally, they were able to win the case where they were able to take back that property, or I don't know the details of the settlement. I know if they just got paid for the property, we were able to take it back. But we're just asking ourselves, how do we protect our Black legacy? Now, let me throw a monkey wrench in this. There was also a doctor, I don't remember where he was from, what state this was in, but in the 1800s, his name was James Marion Sims. Yeah. He is called the father of modern gynecology. Well, it came to light that he experimented on many Black women without anesthetic, without anesthesia, in austere conditions, no pain meds, doing horrible, horrific gynecological exams and experimentation on them to find out how to do proper gynecological exams, how the uterus works, how fallopian tubes are, etc. And they gave him this name, the father of modern gynecology, knowing damn well this man was a torturer. He ran a torture chamber. And it's things like this that we have to call out the elephant in the room. All of those profiting from those hella line of cells needs to be held accountable. And I think in these particular cases, the only way we can do that is by standing together and never getting tired and never letting it slide. No one even feels guilty enough to say, look, I didn't take it personally. It was given to me by a research company. Let me just hand you, 100 million of my multiple billions to compensate you for what we have and what you've blessed us with so that we can come up with all this cancer research, et cetera. They don't even feel obligated to do it. And as a matter of fact, what these big companies do is when you take them to court and you lose, they send you the bill. They send the family the bill when they take them to court and sue them for their intellectual property or what they deserve. And if and when they lose, when you're fighting a huge company that has a lot of judges and the justice system in their pocket, they send them the bill. So they're doing this with complete disregard for morality. So it is up to us. It's up to us as the people to fight against this and say, we will not stand for this and we will not take it and we will not support you, and call them out at every chance you get. So this also leads into the question of, are the descendants of improperly received gains responsible for the person who stole it? So slavery, we'll go back to slavery times. Are the descendants of slave owners responsible for what their ancestors did? If they have profited from it then and they continue to profit off of it now, are they responsible for it? Because the going line is, I'm not responsible for what my great so-and-so did, even though they're still profiting from it. And this is the very similar case. You may not have been the one that took the cells out of her vagina, but you're profiting from it. So you owe this family something. I saw someone say, cut the check. Cut the damn check and cut it now. But we have to hold them accountable.
I think it varies. I think the circumstances depict the responsibility, right? If we're talking about intellectual property, then yeah, I think that if you profited off of something that my grandmother did, created, gave up, whatever the case might be, without consent. Because we're talking about 1920s, 1950s, where Black people didn't have consent. Like this conversation, we're going to take the conversation full circle and talk about protecting rights today, right? But right now, we're talking about 1920s, 1950s, and during a time when Blacks, African Americans, we didn't have these rights. So if something happened then and that our people are profiting from today, and we can prove it, hell yeah, we should be able to come back and get those funds. You are responsible for those things. Slavery is one of those things where it's difficult. Should we get reparations? Absolutely. But if somebody's great 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 grandfather was a slave owner, do we hold the great 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 grandson accountable for the sins of the great 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 grandfather? Now, I say that to say this: if that legacy passed down from grandson to grandson to grandson, and he's a racist and he hasn't learned anything from his forefathers, then yeah. But as time has gone on and things have happened, I don't think so. I think it would be difficult because we'd have to flip it in reverse. Are you responsible for the things that your great 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 grandfather did?
Are we still profiting off of it? That's
No.
the only time it matters. If I'm profiting, if my great great grandfather stole a bag of diamonds, and that is what built our legacy, and then my father and then me and my kids are all still profiting from that bag of diamonds, I damn sure assure you, when De Beers finds out who I am and what happened, they're taking every single thing I have.
Yeah.
And
well, then we're owed everything because Rockefeller stole. I mean, everybody stole.
They sure
Everybody stole.
And they still profiting from it. So we need somebody to cut the checks.
That's what I'm saying.
We do. Not only that, we need the American government to cut the check. What the Vaseline pandemic showcased was that all the things that we thought wasn't possible is possible. And guess what? It can happen quickly. I heard folks talking about stimmies and everything, how they was getting payments. Guess what? That same process can easily be implemented to all of the Black folks, all right, in this country. Here's another thing. This country, the banks in this country had benefited from slavery. All of these people benefited from Black people not having rights. All of these people benefit from Black people going through Jim Crow era. This whole systemic infrastructure is basically responsible for, like, basically through the treatment of Black people, enslavement. We built it. We built the country. So we are due payment. Number one, we're due payment. It's like this. If you are living a good life of stolen goods, guess what? Time's up. That's it. Like, you cannot be like, well, my great grandfather did this, I didn't do it. And guess what? The house is still standing. The profit is still there. So we coming for the profit. This has nothing to do with who you are and your parents are and your moral compass. This has everything to do what is factual, which is we get paid. Because the ramifications of the enslavement, and if you can see, just to bring it back with Henrietta Lacks, it's not what they did to Henrietta, it's her children was literally left without money. Her children, her daughter, she had mental health issues. She had she was unhealthy as well. They lived in poverty. When you live in poverty, there are certain resources that you just do not have access to. You don't get a chance to go to the doctor all the time. You don't get a chance to have nice cars. When you live in poverty, you don't have the option. So you mean to tell me you made $35 billion off me, my dead body, my dead everything that continue to be duplicated, and my children can't afford a hospital bill? I am the hospital. You don't, like, I feel like, what are you doing? Like,
come on, preach.
Cannot continue to use these kind of antics and think. And I'm so happy that this happened in California, because guess what? Everybody is under the impression that, oh, I wasn't a part of it. Yes, you were. Yes, you were. We all are participating in this system. So like what happened in California, this is magical because it takes a lot of time for this stuff. First of all, judges and juries and all of this stuff and money. We don't have the money. That's why we don't like to go to court. You mean to tell me I got to keep going to court? I can't keep going to court. And let me tell you something else. A lot of folks in the community like to get on being crunk. But who the hell told y'all that you weren't supposed to get you a law degree? If you had the law degree, then you can do it too. This is why it's important for us, like you said, Faye and Lene and Teddy, like the whole group says, it's important for us to be educated. Y'all want to twerk all damn day. It's not going to get you your legacy back. When you you can drink all the lean you want to, it's not going to get your legacy back. And I'm going to pass the mic, but if you think about Marvin Gaye, who is his children? Where they at? We still listening to the music. Aretha Franklin, she had music for 50 years. We still listening to her music. Who's Aretha Franklin's children? Where they at? When you think about people who are literally a part of historical music and all of these things, and you think about their seeds, who are their seeds? But how do you know who Kim Kardashian children are? How do you know who is, other people kids, white people kids that has no participation to Black legacy? But we don't control and we don't try in some cases, and then when we can't afford it. So it's important for us to have law degrees. It's important for us to have tax degrees because we have to fight this system with knowledge.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. And it takes me back to a discussion we had some weeks ago when we were talking about celebrities and celebrity children. I forget what discussion we were having, but I was talking about how there are a lot of celebrities out there then and now, but they tend to acquire wealth, but that wealth tends to die off after one generation. And the reason for that comes from lack of knowledge and ignorance. One of the things that I think many, I would say millennials and even our parents and grandparents, what we tend to try to acquire most are fame. We try to acquire a celebrity. We try to make a name for ourselves. It's even more prevalent today than it was back then. Everybody wants to be a superstar, right? And everybody wants to get rich. But nobody wants to be wealthy, because when we think of wealth, we think of dollars and cents. When legacy has to do with your family, it has to do with preservation of all that you've acquired, regardless of what it is. It could be land, it could be a paper you've written, that gained notoriety through a Harvard study or a study at an HBCU. It could be a drill team you started in your local community. It's so important for us to preserve legacy, because what happens is when you don't do the necessary work to learn law, to learn business, to preserve your legacy, and just do what it takes to understand legacy preservation, what you're doing is you're allowing the government to acquire your private property, your intellectual property, or whatever, and they could do whatever they want with it for public use. That's why you have so many singers and dead actors and dead entertainers who basically, after they passed on, a lot of their catalogs were sold off to corporations. You even have some celebrities who are alive today who, I'll give you one example, Montel Jordan. Everybody knows him for the famous song, "This Is How We Do It." Well, guess what Montel Jordan had to do when he went broke? And mind you, he lost a lot of his money pretty early in his career. I think it was by the second album, he said that he really didn't have any money to survive on. And mind you, this is a married man who had a wife and a daughter at the time. So he sold the rights to "This Is How We Do It." And guess what? He expressed regret to this day of doing that, because now that song is used in commercials. It's used on radio stations. It's used in movies. This is a man who voluntarily, because of his ignorance, unbeknownst to him, gave his legacy away. This is a song that his daughter and his daughter's children and their children and their children could have been living off till the end of days, long after, hundreds of years after we've left this planet. And that's why legacy preservation is important. You cannot rely on your industry friends. You cannot rely on your favorite YouTube star, your favorite social media influencer to lead you to that pot of gold. You have to do the research for yourself. You have to educate yourself, and not just educate yourself, educate your family too. Educate your children, because it's so easy for the government and corporations to come yank what's rightfully yours out from under you.
Yes, yes. And can I just go back to the medical field for a second? Darlene X, she says, it's time for us to develop our own systems again. And I feel that that goes for medical as well, because as early as, slavery, going back to slavery, and this is a direct quote from the book Medical Apartheid. And if you guys haven't read that, that is an amazing book by Harriet Washington. But it says it was the belief that Blacks did not feel pain, which excused painful surgeries and explorations without anesthesia. So I feel that that is still prevalent today. I feel, especially Black women, I believe that when we go into surgery for, or not just surgery, but when we're giving birth, it's not, and we say, oh, we're in pain. Oh, you're okay. But if someone from another community says that, it's like, oh, they believe them. And this is why you have a large majority of Black women that pass away. Like the percentage of Black women passing away during childbirth is greater than any other group. So in my mind, I don't want to say it's easy to establish legacy financially, but I feel that it's harder medically, because we do have representation now, right? We have representation in the medical field, and we feel like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just go to a Black doctor. But this Black doctor is still part of this system. So, and I don't have the answer. I really don't. And that's why I want to have this conversation with you ladies. Like, what do we do about that? What do we do about this system where now we have the representation and we're going to these Black doctors and we're still not protected fully?
I think
that. I'm sorry, Madam President. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Teddy. I've been talking a lot.
I think it's important. Let me do Lene. Let me reset the room. We're talking today with these beautiful ladies of the Melanated Hour, where we are letting you breathe in the Black experience through current events that we can trace back to the Black community, and legacy, entrepreneurship, wealth building, so that we can grow ourselves. And today's topic is protecting our Black legacy, protecting it from theft. And Ms. Keisha just said, what do we do to make sure that we have representation in all sorts of different fields? And as a woman who's had 2 C-sections of both my babies because of fibroids, I had a representation. I had an advocate with me at all times, at every appointment. When I went in for my C-section, both kids came early. So I only had one doctor, my second child, my daughter, who wasn't my doctor. My doctor was out of town that week. It was like 5 weeks before I was due. And the doctor that was filling in for him, I have high blood pressure. He wanted to just deliver the baby. He's like, well, we're going to deliver you today. I was like, no, you're not. He's like, oh, yes, we are. I was like, excuse you. And like, it was in someone, not me and not my husband, who was easily intimidated, would have got that white coat syndrome and would have felt like, okay, he's the doctor. He knows what's best for me. He's telling me I need to do it. I'm going to do it. And not knowing that I could talk to the nurse and say, do I have to do this or not? It just said, hell no. Call someone in your family who's a doctor or who's been a nurse for a long time and ask those questions. And thank God I had those resources. So I did end up delivering early, not with my doctor, but it wasn't by him. And it would have never been by him because I didn't like him. I didn't like the way he did business. I didn't like the way he talked to me. So I refused. And you have rights. So you need to make sure that even if you are not confident in what you can do, you are associated with and standing in the room with you are people who do. That is something I really want to bring up about the Black community specifically, because that's who's here. B1 all the way, baby. Is y'all got to stop cutting people off. Y'all got to stop cutting people off and thinking you can do it by yourself, because you cannot. If you don't have an advocate and if you don't have a representative that can speak on your behalf, if your ass stroke out over there and you can't say a damn word, and there's no one who's there for you to speak up and say, hold on, what are we doing? What is this procedure? I can say this person would want this person wouldn't want this. Medical directives, something that's signed, a living will, something written down that says what you want to happen, then anything can happen. All willy-nilly, anybody can do whatever they want to do with you. So y'all got to have some people around you that you can trust. Y'all need to have those difficult conversations about medical directives, about your finances, about your passwords, about your bank accounts. Otherwise, the state, if something were to happen to you, the state can do whatever they darn well please with your legacy. So not only can you not protect it because you're incapacitated, but no one else can protect it for you because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So it's all about having those tough conversations and educating yourself. What do you like to think?
Absolutely. I just wanted to say to what Keisha and you both were saying, and when Keisha asks, what is something that we can do? I think how the medical board can assist African-American women and stop allowing racist doctors to become doctors. Here's the thing, you are intelligent, right? And you go through this entire process and you've done your residency. There needs to be a psychology evaluation to determine if you are a racist or not, perhaps. And if so, let's go ahead and get you back to doing something else, maybe doing some paperwork, but it's proven that we do not want you as a doctor. See, what happens in America, we are a place where being moral just don't matter no more. Oh, he's smart. I remember they was talking about a guy who basically the guy who shot up the kindergarten students a few years back, and the CNN was literally saying, well, he has a high IQ and he's a genius. How could that possibly be a genius? Your standards have failed you. What you consider to be geniusness is failing you. What you consider to be genius and got 30 kids killed, America. So that's problematic. And what we have been up against is this whole system where, oh, as long as he can read and write, then therefore he's fit the bill, and he, and science, because science is important for all those people who don't like science. We got to have folks that like science and math to be a doctor. C and CC are two different things, and doctors and nurses understand that. So it's like all of that stuff is important. So, but like if you're a racist, it's null and void. We can't have you on the force, period. They used to say, oh, if you gay, you can't join the army. Good. If you're a racist, you can't join this. You can't be a doctor. You can't
do nothing.
You
can't be able to do nothing.
Police officer. If you are racist, you can't not be anything in this country until you go ahead and figure out something else to be besides racist. And I wanted to say too, if we could, Tina Turner just sold her rights to her name, her likeness for $50 million. Why Tina Turner don't got $50 million? Right. You mean to tell me another system can control your likeness and your name, and you haven't even? And this is the power right here of white supremacy. White supremacy will take you from your own children. You don't even teach your children what to do with your legacy. You don't even teach your children what to do with your name. You don't even teach your children nothing. So when the times come, you headed to the grave, you're going to pass it off to somebody else. How? I'm done.
I wish I had a microphone.
I can't even follow that up. That was like a shake the tambourine moment. Church.
I mean, you said a matter of fact, they will take you from your own children and make you think that's what you want to do, right?
Right.
And it's that separation, it's that distance. I mean, it's a poison. It is a poison. We have to that's why we have to celebrate the Black family, because the collective Black family, the parents, the children, the grandgrands, all of them. We have to unite and start stepping into situations as a united front, or this kind of stuff will continue to happen because we can't want it more than they want it. We can't want this for Tina. Tina wanted that 50 million for whatever reason, and she's got it. So we can't, that's her legacy. She gets to do what she wants to do with her legacy, and she's disposed of it the way she wanted to dispose of it. But you have control over your legacy. And that's really all we need to worry about. If everybody worries about their own personal legacy, then we don't have to do it for you. And we won't have nothing to talk about. We'll just get to grow and build. And, another thing is the Tulsa, Black Wall Street, right? It's not a sore subject for me because it was just so awful. But I just think we can't keep looking back at that. We can look at it as an example of what happened. But the question always is, well, why don't we have that now? And that is the question, right? Are there any Black communities that may be thriving, but they're not shouting it from the rooftops and we just don't know about it? And if there aren't any, how do we there's a lot of people who are trying to do that on smaller scales. I think there was I'm gonna mess up the city, the buyback, not Huntsville.
There's buyback the block, but you might be thinking about Freedom, Georgia, the 19 families that bought that space out there and to set up their own organization out there in Freedom, Georgia.
So it's happening all over the country. So we have to support that. We have to help that with our own dollars and cents to help create those new legacies so that we have $50 million to leave on to our kids.
And be patient, because legacy isn't built overnight. Right. So we can't say, oh, we don't have this. We don't have it because the generation before us didn't leave. And I don't want to say across the board, but the generation before us didn't leave it. So now it's up to us to create it. And we may not see it. So that's something that we also have to understand. We're doing the work, but we may not see the fruits of our labor, right? And we spoke about success the other day, and we spoke about success being legacy, something to pass down to your children, something that your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren will have. So is it okay for you, and not just you ladies, the people in the comments as well, is it okay for you to work, right, on this legacy and feel okay with not seeing that?
So you made it, you said, so legacy is, you can literally change your legacy in one death. So creating a legacy is literally one death away, especially in our community. So I'm going to tell you how other communities do it. It's called life insurance. We, as Black people, we don't invest in life insurance. Other communities, and I apologize because I think somebody's about to walk by, but other communities, they will buy a $1 million life insurance policy on their death and change the trajectory of the next generation that's coming behind them by putting it in a trust and saying how that $1 million is supposed to be spent. Unfortunately, in our community, I have heard it said, I'm not going to do a life insurance policy because I don't want them living off of my death, but nobody's going to get rich off of me. We have to change our thinking about legacy. We have to take the oneness. We have to take accountability for legacy. We have to say, you know what? On my death, the next generation will do better. The generation after that will do better. Shantae said we have to be thinking about 1,000 years into the future. Legacy can literally, you can change the course of generations with just you. Just your death, just your life insurance policy, just your, I said it, not will, your, what's the T word?
Trust.
Your trust, yes.
Yeah.
A will is cool, but as we have seen with all these people that have died, a will can get caught in court for years. A will is cool if that's all you can do. But if you have the time, the patience, the ability to do a trust, you can literally set your family up for years. So it's not that you don't have the ability to change the trajectory of your family. It's not that you don't have the ability to change the trajectory of legacy. You do. You just have to take it serious. Go and get you a life insurance policy. Talk about death. Talk about what you want to see happen with your family when you pass. Talk about what you want to happen with your intellectual property. Talk about how you want your business to be passed on. Talk about where you want somebody to go to school, how you want your 401k to be spent. If you want people to buy a house, if you want them to have the money when they're 21 or you don't want them to get the money until they're 30. Talk about if you want them to be able to sell your property. We have to have these conversations. You can't just pass away and leave somebody $300,000 and then expect that to carry them on. Now that could if it's invested in real estate, but we have to have these conversations. We can't be afraid to talk about death. We can't be afraid to talk about legacy, and we can't be afraid to talk about what we want to transpire happen when we pass. I'm going to read you guys this quote before we go around the room and get everybody's last final thought. And I'm gonna try not to get emotional because every time I look at it, it makes me like almost cry. Going back to the historic beachfront property that was returned to the Black family 100 years after it was seized. Anthony Bruce, a 38-year-old great grandson, I'm getting emotional again, of the Bruces, told the Guardian, the return of the property is a reckoning that has been long overdue. For me and the generations after, this would mean an inheritance and that internal security of knowing that I come from somewhere, that I come from a people. Oh, it rocks me to my soul. The importance of inheritance and legacy, and some of that is just what's been stolen from us. Like so much has been stolen from us. Don't let nobody steal nothing else from us. Don't let nobody steal nothing from you. Not nothing from your kids, from your great grandkids. You have the power right now to make sure that nobody steals legacy from you. And you also have the power to make sure that you set up legacy for those that come after you. We'll go around the room, Teddy. I know I gave you the floor, so
it's just to jump off what you say, I am not afraid to talk about money, and I'm not afraid to talk about death. Because here's a news flash for all y'all who don't know: you will not be here forever. You will not be here forever. And if you start young enough with a life insurance policy, it can be as little as $20 a month for hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million policy, if you started off young enough. So, and that's a term life. I'm not talking about whole life because I have really strong feelings about whole life, but a term life insurance policy, you can do this. Then you have to do the work of finding a lawyer who can help you develop a living revocable trust. Those words sound big. They sound maybe out of your realm, but Google it. I assure you, it is not that difficult to do. And no one is going to set up generational wealth for you. And if no one left it to you, it has to be you. Let me say it one more time. If no one left it to you, it has to be you. You have to be the one to initiate the generational wealth. Even for those out there that don't have children, you want to build something and you want to leave it to someone. So maybe you have sisters, nieces, nephews, second cousins, whoever. They are part of your legacy too. Yeah. It doesn't have to be your personal children. And you need to care about something bigger than you. And if you're standing on this earth and not caring about something that's going to happen after you've left this earth, because we are all leaving this earth, then that's time for some self-meditation and some self-revelation. You need to dig deep and figure out what the issue is. But our families, I know people, as much as I talk about money, I have people in my own family who don't know how to talk about money. As soon as you mention death, they get nervous and start wiggling in their seat and don't want to have the damn conversation. And that's hard for me to even tolerate, because I'm like, the conversation has to be had, but you just got to keep trying so that you can be the change that you want to see in the world.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Keisha. Your final thought.
I'm happy that we bought up life insurance. There was this big thing a few weeks ago about the comedian Anthony. I forgot his last name, but he was in Friday, and his wife, she needed money to bury him. She didn't have the money to bury him the way she wanted to bury him. And she began asking for money. So she set up a crowdfunding, and she didn't get the money that she wanted to get. And I can't not, like, she's a grieving woman. So I don't want this to come off insensitive. However, I feel that, how dare you come after people because they're sending their condolences, so they're pouring into you emotionally, but they're not giving to you financially. That is not their responsibility. It was your responsibility. It was your husband's responsibility to make sure these things were in place before you or him left this earth. So I want to say to you all that it is your responsibility. Don't expect someone to come and rescue you and save you and give to you. Even we talk about reparations, and I heavily feel that we deserve reparations, but what are we doing now? We're not getting it, right? We're not getting it in this moment, but we have to make sure we're putting things in place for us, for our families and for the next generation. And I agree with both Lene and Teddy about setting up that life insurance. It is extremely important to have that if you want to pass something down.
I think we're gonna
Absolutely. Miss Faye Bishop?
Sure. I'm glad that you brought up the life insurance part of it, because that's extremely important. And if I could piggyback off of something Keisha just said when she used the Anthony A.J. Johnson example, the actor who was widely known for his performance as Ezel in Friday and other movies, and how his wife kind of just went off on everybody because she wasn't able to raise money. We tend to forget that part of our legacy preservation is the relationships that we cultivate, the relationships that we build. And I don't know anything about Anthony A.J. Johnson personally. I don't know anything about you guys in the comment section personally, but I firmly believe that the way to build legacy is how we preserve our families. The building of a unique foundation that is set in stone and etched in stone for our families. And yes, that goes for the relationships that we have with our spouses and the relationships that we have with our children. Because if not, it could be a situation like James Brown, who had all these different kids by all of these different women. And here we are almost, 16 years, not 16, something like that, 16, 17 years after his death, they're still fighting over his estate. Okay. Legacy is not having 10 different baby mamas and baby daddies all over the place. It's not unpopular opinion. Y'all could drag me, but I firmly believe that. It is, you have to cultivate a family. And even if you are, divorced, single, and however you have your relationship, you have to make sure that the relationships that you cultivate are healthy, because it goes into the preservation of your legacy. You don't want your kids fighting each other, and his kids coming from the other side of town claiming rights to your, will and your money, and you didn't even know you had these kids. And your children that you did take care of in the same house didn't know you had these kids. You don't want that. Part of legacy preservation, and I think everybody needs to remember this, and we need to take this with us even after this conversation, is about how we cultivate the foundation, the unique foundation in our families. I believe that had A.J. Johnson had a different kind of relationship, perhaps, and his wife as well, with people, maybe she wouldn't have had to beg for money through GoFundMe. Maybe he could have had a good send-off the way Kobe Bryant did. One woman, all children by that same woman. He could have had a different send-off the way Nipsey Hussle did. He could have had a different send-off, even the way DMX did, and even he had different kids. But so it could be different. It varies across the board. But I think we do forget that in addition to the life insurance, in addition to learning law, learning business, and learning about probate and estate, we also need to preserve families. We need to preserve our families, because it's very, very crucial to the legacy that we leave behind.
Absolutely. Lene, I don't need an introduction. I think I got it right here. So I just want to say that when Lene read that quote and he said, "We come from a people," I felt it in my feet, because I think it's a reminder that regardless of what America had plans for statistically in the bad, guess what? I come from a people. I come from a people. My grandmother, I come from a woman, like her grandmother, I come from a woman. And don't get it twisted. Everybody who's not, as articulate still, they don't have to be as articulate as our grandparents used to say, good, sit down and use the wrong word, noun, agreement, but their communication was absolutely immaculate. They got it right. You know what I'm saying? So I think that we doing the first steps is continuously having the conversation. I think the second step after the conversation is, everybody need to go and figure out how to get that $1 million policy. I talked to my sisters about, we have some elders in the family, and I said, what's going on? We got some elders going on here. Why we ain't came together, paying this policy on them, and it's sensitive. People get sensitive about like context. I said, now I got an uncle that one of my favorite uncles, that's about 7 foot tall. Is like treat me like I'm his daughter, and I love him so much. And he was talking about leaving me his policy, and I said, well, "How much money you got?" And I called my mother. This is me being funny, but I called my mother and said, "Y'all gonna need some more money if y'all want me to be over this arrangement, okay?" But the point of the matter is, we can do it together. It is very difficult, as Renee said, it's very difficult, and Teddy, everybody said, it's very difficult to do it alone. But together we can, oh my God, we get so far. Even the people who's getting their land back in California, that's a long time. But the great grandchildren, it says, hey, I come from a people. And you have to keep that in mind. I'm damn near about to quit my job today, remembering that I come from a people. I'm like, hey, look.
Quit, girl, quit.
I come from a people. I am going to put that in my house somewhere. I come from a people. And I'm going to roll out this week with that.
I want to say real quick, Lene, before we get out of here, if you don't have anyone that you can speak to about these kind of matters, I think all of us, all 5 of us, have a modicum of expertise in these matters, if not a course on it, if not a webinar. So hit us up on our socials just to say hi. You see it here. I am Lene Javette. I'm at the Real Teddy Talks. Keisha at We Inspire Brand, Miss Faye Bishop, all on Twitter doing her damn thing, and Facebook as well, and the One Madam President, at One Madam President. And ask those questions, because that's what I like to do, is create a safe space for you. Just like Madam President said, people don't like to talk about it. It's offensive sometimes to even ask people how they're going to disposition their possessions when they pass, and they 85 or 90, like they are offended as if they're never going to leave this earth, or it's none of your business, and you are part of their legacy. So
you are part of
those
it.
conversations with us. Have those conversations with someone you can talk about it to, so you can still get the thing done, even if you can't talk about it with your family members. I'm not going to wiggle in my seat. We're going to have a conversation, get straight to the meat, and I'm going to tell you what I think you should do.
So I will tell you guys that, these conversations are very difficult to have. But somebody has to do it and somebody has to start it. And so I'll tell you guys a little bit like what I'm doing in my family. My mom is having a house built. She already knew she wanted to have a house built. She wanted to leave us a house, but she also offered us if we wanted to go in the house with her, we could. So she's having a house built. It's her final house, and she's going to leave it to us. But me and my sisters are allowed to go in on the house too. So it will divide in 3 ways. But for those of us who actually go in the house, we'll get a different portion. She has life insurance at X amount of dollars. I won't put her business out there, but she also said, hey, you guys should do this much more to reach this number, and you guys pay for it. So she has the house, we're calling it the Legacy House. She has her own life insurance policy for us, one life insurance policy for the grandkids, and then me and my sisters have taken one out too. So we always laugh and say, hey, don't get hurt, because if you get hurt, it's going down. It's going down. It's a running joke. It's not funny, but we always be looking at her like, hey, who's driving mom? Who got her? But she always says, I'm worth more alive than dead. That is the truth. Like, hey, you can't beat God given and love and support. But literally, our lives are worth something. Our legacies, our stories, who we are, what we do, our conversation, those things are worth something. Our cells in our body, our intellectual property, our relationships, who we know, our friendships, everything has value. And everything leaves a legacy, right? So hopefully you guys took something away from today, whether it was in support of Henrietta Lacks and supporting that family for getting the rights and intellectual assets that are due to them from their great grandmother's cells, or Bruce Beach, who their family had the beach returned to them after 100 years. Like, hopefully we see more of these stories where we are getting our assets and our intellectual property back. Hopefully we see more of this. But what I would just like to charge you with today going forward is just make sure that your family doesn't have this story, right? Make sure that your family does not have a story of not being protected, because after watching this live today, you decided that you were going to protect your family. Not on your watch, not today. You come from a people, right? You come from a people. And if nobody else knows it, you let them know today. The generations that come behind you, they come from a people. All right.
Mm.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Melanated Air Hour. Please, like Teddy said, go support us. Like we do individually do things. Keisha has a t-shirt company as well as coaches people on how to start their own t-shirt company. Teddy is leaving her current job. I ain't gonna put her business out there, but she's an exit strategist. So if you're looking to exit and go into something different, that's what she does. Madam President, she's a freedom fighter. You hear her preach all the time. She has a t-shirt company called the Freedom Company. If you're looking for some dope shirts that will lead you to freedom, go check her out. Faye Bishop has that helps with casting. She's a mompreneur. I'm a business strategist and a business coach. I help in that area. If you need help, don't struggle. Don't be by yourself. Like you come from a people. We are the people.
We are your people.
Your
Okay?
people.
Yes.
So this is Melanated Air. This is our last show for this week. We do this every Tuesday and Thursday at 2:00 p.m. Eastern. Rain or snow, airport or not, we're gonna be here. We love you. We appreciate you. Go follow everybody. Support us. We will see you next Tuesday at 2:00 p.m. Eastern. Please make sure that you share the broadcast, like the broadcast, and tell your mom and them about it. All right. Peace out. We'll see you later. Bye.
Have a good weekend.